Tonight on Greater Boston, coming to you from the Boston Public Library. While Joe Biden's first State of the Union will focus heavily on Putin's war on Ukraine, as it should, others are hoping to shine a light on some big issues here at home as well. Among them, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who's invited a construction worker mom from Hyde Park to be her virtual guest to highlight the need for accessible and affordable childcare. That would be Christina Morris, who joins me too, along with Lindsay McCluskey from the nonprofit Care That Works. Then later, head of security for the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, Anthony Amore, who once told me he knows who pulled off the infamous heist on the latest developments more than 30 years on. And finally, the filmmaker and one of the courageous souls in a new GBH News documentary on the extreme sport of, you ready? Winter surfing. When Joe Biden delivers his first State of the Union later tonight, Russia and Ukraine will take center stage as Putin's forces bear down on Kyiv and target civilian areas in their latest attacks. It's a very different speech than the one Biden was originally planning to give, which was reportedly focused largely on his domestic agenda and his far-reaching Build Back Better bill, which includes proposals like free preschool, child care subsidies, paid family leave, and an extension of the child tax credit expansion, all of which have been stalled thanks to Republicans and a couple of Democrats in the Senate. And all of which Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley is hoping to get back into the spotlight. To that end, she's invited as a virtual guest to tonight's speech Christina Morris. Christina is a mother of four, union carpenter from Hyde Park, who's here ahead of the event. We're also joined by Lindsay McCluskey. She's a senior strategist for Care That Works. It's a coalition of community groups that organize for greater access to childcare. It's good to meet you both. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure. Christina, 15 years a carpenter, odd hours. I know construction is odd hours, 4 kids. Through the years, how have you found accessible, affordable childcare, or have you?
I have not found any the traditional way, so I've had to rely heavily on my boyfriend's family, the paternal grandmother and aunt. So because our hours start at 7 or sometimes 6, so traditional childcare does not provide those type of hours. And that has been a struggle. My oldest is 11, so for the past 11 years, that's what we've had to do.
You know, Christina, I'm pretty sure I watched a video with you and the Congresswoman. Obviously, you were chosen because you were a beneficiary of this $300 a month per child tax credit thing that obviously is disappearing, assuming the Build Back Better never happens. What did that extra money mean to you in your life? How did it change things for you?
Well, it relieved a lot of stress as far as basic needs, groceries. Came in handy during the school year with buying their clothes and school supplies. Also came in handy around Christmas time. Also, if I had any emergencies, quick things I could fix right then and at that moment. So it was pretty beneficial. So just a little space reliever.
Yeah, it's more than a little. It was pretty significant money. Lindsay, I know that Christina works with you. What is Care That Works? I gave a sentence on it, but flesh it out a little bit for us, if you would.
Yeah, Care That Works is a coalition of unions and community organizations that have come together to confront the childcare crisis. And we were working together before the pandemic. Our work is even more relevant now. One of the projects that we've been working on is launching a pilot program that is intended to make childcare more accessible during the early hours, so that women like Christina and so many other women and families have access to childcare when they need it. We know that so many working families don't just work from 9 to 5, and that's typically when most childcare is available.
Well, I think we know how expensive childcare is in Massachusetts. I think we have the second highest costs in the nation. What's the status of the pilot program?
The pilot program is up and running for families who might be interested. If you work non-traditional hours or if you're interested in a career in construction, but childcare has been holding you back, you should visit our website. It's carethatworks.org. And we're just really excited to, we know there's many barriers to people pursuing the types of jobs that they want, particularly moms. But we're excited to be able to try to help eliminate one of those barriers, which we know is childcare. And you know, it's we aren't able to solve all the problems at once, but hopefully if Build Back Better does pass, there'll also be some solutions about the affordability crisis.
You know, Christina, not only when I've read about you, do you have to deal with, I think your kids are 3 to 11 years old, and the odd hours you do in a job that it sounds like you love and loved for a long time. You had to take a voluntary layoff, from what I understand, during the pandemic, early phases of the pandemic, because you had to deal with remote learning for your kids. How'd you deal with that?
One day at a time. So yes, I had to take a layoff in September of 2020 for the remote learning. And that was pretty stressful, just to learn the educational platforms along with my children, learning all those platforms. And at the same time, trying to keep the 2 little ones busy and away from the 2 older ones. So it was pretty stressful.
I can imagine. And, you know, to get back to what I asked you before, Christina, you mentioned what you were able to do with the child tax credit that, again, for those who have not been paying attention, is about to disappear if the Senate doesn't act. What's the impact of the loss when it happens in your family and your ability?
Well, I think I most likely have to be a little bit more mindful on budgeting, and maybe having to choose one thing over the other, as far as like maybe the children's extracurricular activities, keeping mindful when I go grocery shopping. It's a little bit more of a burden, I guess, or on my mind, things that I would not be able to do without it.
I understand that. Lindsay, back to what you're doing. I think the pilot program is great, but I assume you'd agree, at the end of the day, this is something that government has to take seriously. Pilot programs and expanded pilot programs are never going to fill the hole. I assume you agree with that?
That's right. I mean, what we really need is universal childcare, and a really robust system of universal childcare that not only funds our current system, but actually goes beyond what our current system does and meets the real needs of families like Christina's and so many that, need not just what's currently available, but actually need even more. We need more hours covered. We need more resources available for families to offset the cost of childcare. And we need enough money in that system to make sure that childcare providers make a family sustaining wage.
Well, as Elizabeth Warren, I thought, beautifully called it, family infrastructure. When people think about traditional infrastructure, bridges and roads, this, as she says, is family infrastructure. Lindsay, I know that Mayor Wu, in the absence of federal action, has opened this Office of Early Childhood. Is that promising, or is that a ways off? I mean, I know the office is open.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And I think that, cities and state leaders all over the country should be doing what they can. And there's a lot that they can do. But really what we need is for Congress to act and to put into place a universal childcare system that meets all the needs of families and providers.
And by the way, we're not going to go into it tonight. We've discussed in the past. It would cap the amount of your income you spend on childcare. For some lower income families, they would fully subsidize it, assuming this Build Back Better would happen. Christina, on my radio show with Marjorie Egan, when the early days of Build Back Better, we naively said, well, now that half the families roughly in America have benefited from this child tax credit, there's no way that Congress is ever going to take it away. We just don't do that. We don't give something and then take it away. Were you under that same assumption when it started, that it was here to stay for you and your kids?
No, I figured it was temporary, or whatever the amount was that you get back during the taxes. I figured that's what it was going to be. I felt like it was a temporary relief. I did not think it was going to be permanent.
Well, it should have been permanent, and if Congresswoman Pressley has anything to do with it, it will be permanent. Christina, before you go, we're ignoring sort of the lead here. You're going to the State of the Union tonight, virtually, I should say. You as Ayanna Pressley's guest. Are you excited?
Yeah, it's very excited.
Are you really? I can't tell if you are or not. Are you?
Yes, I'm very excited and honored, and I'm just glad to share my story that so many other families have. I'm glad it's getting to this level, and everybody can hear it, and hopefully we can do something about it. Because I feel more women are trying to get into the construction or the trades, and this lack of, or the affordability of childcare, and also the early hours, is probably the #1 reason why they will not be able to do it. So I'm glad that this is happening and being heard.
You're a great advocate for all those families and all those mothers. Christina, good to meet you. Have fun tonight. I don't know if fun's the right word. Enjoy tonight. Lindsay, it's good to meet you too. Thanks so much for your work.
Thanks so much, Jim.
In the 32 years since the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum was robbed of 13 works of art, valued at more than $500 million, there have been many theories about who may be responsible. And for years, my next guest has felt pretty confident he had the right one. That'd be the Gardner's head of security, Anthony Amore, who joins me now in the latest developments in the case. Anthony, it's good to see you as always.
Likewise, Jim.
So most people think there are two certain things in life, death and taxes. I know that there are actually three: death, taxes, and yet another story about someone who may have been behind this theft. We read it in the last couple of days about this guy, James Marks, murdered going into his house in Lynn in 1991. Fill in the blanks for us if you can.
Sure. Well, he was murdered in February of 1991, so it was just less than a year after the Gardner theft took place. And his name had come to us back in around 2010 from a tipster who said that Mr. Marks had told that person that he had access to the Gardner art. That's not an exact quote, but he sort of gave that message to this person. Sometime later, I was able to find out that Mr. Marks was a person who had been killed by a person of interest in the Gardner theft by the name of Robert Garenti. I spoke to Garenti's widow, and we were able to confirm this information, worked with the state police and the Lynn police. And the fact that Marks had been talking about the Gardner pieces and also had been killed by a person who was a person of interest raised obvious red flags for us. And then on top of that, we learned that not long after the theft, Garenti and another person of interest named Robert Gentile, who lives in Manchester, Connecticut, were in the area around the time of the Marks homicide. So all of these things come together to raise questions for us.
And you're hoping that now that it's back in the news, I know you've known about this for quite a while, that it's in the news, it may prompt other people to come forward about something. But the thing that I don't get about, well, I shouldn't say I don't get, roughly a dozen years ago, you referenced that this guy, Marks, was bragging about how he had some of the paintings, I think in his 3rd floor apartment in Lynn, and it was searched, there was nothing there. I don't know much about criminals and mobsters and thieves, but isn't part of what you do for a living is brag to your compatriots that the biggest crime ever in the art world, or another crime, I'm responsible, I have the paintings. Isn't that something you'd expect, or no?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, we do have information that we've gathered over the years about certain people that we have great interest in having bragged, but not as much, or not to the extent where we're able to pinpoint where we can find the paintings right now. So we've said in the past, and I've said in the show, that we have a good idea who did this. We believe that we know who perpetrated the heist, but getting from point A, knowing who pulled it off, to point B, where are the paintings today, is the rub here.
You know, every single time I talk to you about this, this is what puts me totally over the edge. You, and I assume when you say we, you're talking about the FBI, correct me if I'm wrong, believe
Yes.
You know who's responsible, but you just can't get from here to there with proof. Is that right?
Right. Well, we can't get from there to where are the paintings today, which is the only question we're trying to address.
What do you mean? Because the people, the suspects are dead? Is that what your point is?
Yes, the FBI mentioned years ago that the suspects, the actual perpetrators, had passed away. But beyond that, Jim, the only goal here is putting the paintings back in frames, at least from my perspective. I work for the museum. Arrests and prosecutions aren't the sorts of things that we really care about. On top of that, the statute of limitations for the actual heist expired many, many years ago.
So why don't you say out loud who the person is if they're dead? You can't get sued for that, so that may even prompt more follow-up leads than this situation with this guy that was executed going into his house, this Marks guy. Why don't you just say the name?
We believe that it's a much more effective way for us to investigate it via going to people we know who are connected to those, instead of putting these names out there and getting flooded, and I mean flooded with calls, not just from psychics and what have you, but from con men and theorists. I don't know if the public understands the extent to which we receive calls from those sorts of people.
You know,
and they all have to be followed up on, Jim, so it's incredibly time consuming.
You know, I, as an outsider, have followed this fairly closely, like I think almost everybody in this community has. The guy that I can't get my mind off, there was a 23-year-old guard. According to you, not somebody else, your motion detectors in the museum never detected the thieves in a room where I think there was a Manet, did detect this guard. You also said, that prior to letting buzzing the thieves in, he opened a side door. Why is he still a free man? I mean, the circumstantial evidence is pretty overwhelming, isn't it?
It's interesting circumstantial evidence. It obviously causes one to sit up and pay attention and to investigate very thoroughly, but it's not enough to actually arrest somebody or even accuse them of a crime just based on the circumstantial evidence.
Is he part of the group that's responsible for this, according to you?
I wouldn't comment on a past employee.
You know, I am also amazed about how calm watching you now, Anthony, I've known you for quite a while. It sounds almost like your attitude is, well, we just have to continue pursuing what we're doing, and we're going to find the paintings, I don't know, next week, next month. It's been 32 years. Unless I'm misreading you, where does the level of confidence come from? Is it hope over reality, or is it reality?
For me, it's reality. But, you know, the reason is just because I know, you know, all I can do, Jim, is give it my best effort and try to do everything humanly possible to get the paintings back in the best way we can. And that's what I'm doing. So that's where the hope comes from. That's where the confidence comes from. I know we're doing everything we possibly can. There's no one I won't speak to. There's no, you know, line, you know, well, this person is a dangerous person or this person is unscrupulous. No, we're doing everything we possibly can. Sure, we come up against a lot of mistruths and myths about the theft that cause a lot of problems publicly. I keep hearing people saying that if you come forward with only one painting, you get no reward. Just crazy things like this that we have to try to counter as well. But we're doing it, and we're working really hard. And I also have history telling me that these things do come back, and they come back a generation later, and the perseverance is the key.
Well, I hope your hope and perseverance is rewarded, and I really hope you're there the day it happens. Anthony Amore, as always, good to talk to you.
Thanks so much, Jim. Appreciate that.
Well, my idea of a perfect New England winter day includes a couch, a good book, and a hot cup of coffee as you watch the snow fall outside. Others have a very different view. For some reason, they look at the freezing ocean water on any given January morning and think, let's surf, as chronicled in a beautiful new GBH News documentary on the extreme sport of winter surfing. Extreme to me, not them.
I can't even grab onto my hands.
And while some like me may not see the difference between winter on a surfboard and waterboarding, stories like those of Pam Chavez of Portland, Maine makes even me see it a little bit differently.
When I left Mexico, of course, the thing that I've been missing the most is family. So, like, bringing that board with me is just like having my mom out there. I came here alone, so it's just like that feeling, like just remembering where you come from and like the people you left behind and like the ones you miss, especially, I mean, your mother.
I love that. Pam Chavez joins me now along with GBH News' Greg Shea, the filmmaker behind this documentary. Good to meet you, Pam, and Greg, congratulations. It's great.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Greg, let me start with you. The only thing more surreal to me than surfing when the wind chill's -4 degrees is filming someone surfing when it's -4 degrees at dawn. What was the inspiration here? How did this all get started?
You know, it came from some of the guys that you actually played in that clip who were taking on these crazy waves at Salisbury Beach the morning after a huge snowstorm. And those guys are my neighbors, you know. And one of the things in this film that I really loved to showcase was, who are these people? It's kind of a cliche in news of like, oh, there's a storm and the surfers are heading to the beach. Well, I happen to have 2 neighbors who live, you know, 3 houses away from me in either direction, and they are the guys who go out and do this. And I found it to be such a curiosity of beyond just that 1-sentence description, like who are they and why do they do this? And I was so lucky to meet people beyond my neighbors, like Edgar and Melinda and Pam, who have just amazing stories, and they're all around us. They're not professional surfers, but they absolutely love it.
Oh, do they ever? So Pam, speaking of surreal, Mexico City, warm, you don't surf. You come to Maine, you do surf. Can you explain that to me?
I mean, I think it was out of desperation, if you want to say it like that, you know, like being in a new country, not having legal papers to work quite yet, like everything getting in order, and like just trying to not go crazy, and suddenly see all the people in the water. It just like pushed me to give it a shot, you know.
How, that beautiful clip about you talking about your mother, you have an owl on your custom surfboard. Why is there an owl there?
Well, when I was a little kid, my mom used to call me her little kolulu, which is a little owl in like a native language in Mexico. So I decided to paint my board like that so that I could just remember where I come from and just have my mom present all the time, even though she's far away. Yeah.
Well, it's great. Yeah, I do know. You said it beautifully. So, Pam, how cold is it when you go out there? Everybody in Greg's film, they put on this neoprene, whatever that is, and they seem to be having the time of their lives. It's got to be cold, despite the outfit, is it not?
I mean, the air is cold. Once you get in that penguin wetsuit kind of thing, really not that cold. It starts becoming really warm, actually. I personally dress up before getting out there. So it's really hot when I'm in my car. So all I want to do is like jump in the cold water, you know.
But when you get out, Pam, can you feel your body when you're done doing, I don't know, an hour of this, half hour of this, whatever it is, Pam? Can you feel all your parts? I mean, what does it feel like? I'm sorry, it's so alien to me. It's beautiful in the film. Can you feel everything or what?
I mean, like, definitely it's harder to move, right? Because it's like 6 millimeters, 5 millimeters of neoprene. And you feel your body, you just don't feel the cold as much until after like maybe 2 hours, 1 hour and a half, depending everyone's body. You then start feeling cold, or you can't even feel your feet sometimes. When you don't feel your toes, you're, okay, this is time to just get out of here.
Well, it makes you happy, apparently. We're going to get back to some of those images of women surfing with Pam in a second. But Greg, the thing that came across to me as a non-surfer, there's a common thread through every one of these people, even though it's a really diverse group of people. You felt that too, no?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the fun things that kind of organically came about while I was working on this. It was kind of beautiful to see. I have sequences in the film where everybody kind of finishes each other's sentences, and I found that really fun that you have a kid from the West Coast, Jake, who grew up in California, and he's in the military, and you know, him and Pam may not have like necessarily the most similar background, but like they can relate to so much about like doing this kind of extreme fun thing in the ocean.
Let's get back to that photograph we saw a second ago, Pam. Maine Women Surf. I don't know if the name has changed or not, but it was. What is that exactly that you're involved in?
More Women Surf now. It's a group, a community-based group, to bring more women in the water, give them that chance to explore the ocean and connect with the ocean. But most importantly is about bringing those women who don't have the same privilege as some of us to that experience, because it's definitely not a really accessible sport for everyone, and can become really expensive. So it changed it to just be more than just an existing community of surfers. It's now about also bringing and growing it and sharing it with people who don't really have that access.
And Pam, you're also, from what I understand, working with public school kids, or at least you hope to. Is that right?
Yeah, we're hoping that it gets approved to partner up with the public schools in Portland to create a pilot program for youth.
Okay, so I want everybody to see the film, Pam, but for skeptics, I know it's impossible to describe an experience like that in words, but try for 30 seconds. What's it like when you're out there and it's 5 degrees and you're on a wave?
Honestly, it's probably the most calming moment of my day. Nothing else exists, and it gives my mind some peacefulness. Being not a native language speaker, English speaker, it's hard sometimes. So when you're in the ocean and you don't have to communicate or you don't have to explain yourself a lot, it is just like a nice break to have. It's just, I don't know, it's just like brings you back to life, makes you feel yourself. You're just connecting with the water. It's just you and the water. And when then you realize that you're not alone, you can turn around and just smile at the people that's around you, and you don't really have to say words, right? It's just sharing a smile.
So Greg, before you go, you said how you're surrounded by people who do this. I know you to be a pretty athletic guy. When was the last time you went winter surfing?
You know, Jim, I actually tried it for the first time this past weekend.
Yeah, and?
It's a lot harder than it looks. But I'm gonna keep trying. I think I've gotten the bug.
Well, you know, the film is beautiful, the people are incredible, and the tableaus in winter, particularly the horrible weather days, are just perfectly beautiful. Greg, congratulations to you, and Pam, it's great to meet you. Thanks so much for your time, you two.
Great to meet you, David.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you. To watch the full documentary, head to gbhnews.org or youtube.com/gbhnews and search winter surfing. That's it for tonight. Please come back tomorrow. Congressman Jake Auchincloss joins me on reactions to tonight's State of the Union and latest efforts to aid Ukraine as Russian forces increasingly target civilians. Plus, Maura Healey on her run for governor and her final few months as Attorney General. That and more tomorrow at 7. Thank you for watching. Please stay safe.
New dawn.
New vibe.
New duo.
I'm looking forward to that, yeah.
Join me, Paris Alston.
And me, Jeremy Siegel.
For GBH's Morning Edition, with the local news and fresh insights you need.
To start your morning and inspire your day.
You know, you gotta live life on the edge a little bit. We're here weekdays from 5 to 10 on 89.7 and gbhnews.org.
All right,
we got it. Let's go. It's a new dawn.
See you in the morning.